Welcome to Gagosian. I'm Deborah McLeod, and we are here at the exhibition Frank Gehry, the 11th exhibition of Frank with the gallery. Frank Gehry had a 40-year friendship with Larry Gagosian, and it's such an honor to have this exhibition now so that we can still feel his warmth and his joy with us, and we can celebrate, I think, one of the favorite parts of his life, his fine art practice. Of course, he was one of the greatest architects of all time, and that was a very consuming, burning passion for Frank. But the art practice was just joy, and I know from speaking to Frank over the years that his intention was to put joy into his buildings, was to make you say, "Oh," when you saw one of his forms. And these sculptures are pure in that way. There are no clients to appease, no compromises. So it's just Frank alone with the artwork, with his favorite forms, pouring himself out onto paper and into form. And so I hope that when you're here and when you walk through the show, I hope it lifts you, because we all levitated knowing Frank. So this exhibition includes a wide range of materials. Frank is drawing, he is sculpting with stainless steel, in copper, in formica, in polyvinyl. And the show also encompasses Frank's benches, so there's the design element, and the exhibition itself was designed by Frank Gehry Partners, by his studio. And the entire project was done in collaboration and hand in hand with his family. You'll see we have featured this fantastic bear, life-size bear, in 316L stainless steel. This is stainless steel that's really very corrosion resistant. It's used in jewelry. It's the finest steel, and you can see as you come around the way it takes the light and looks like water. Frank made this bear in 2014 in an edition of 4, and we borrowed this one from Mrs. Gehry. Berta let us hoist the bear out of her garden and bring it into the gallery for our show that opened on May 14th. Also in this gallery are drawings by Frank. He had a very quiet but important drawing practice throughout his career. Frank's drawings were very intimate, and he was not drawing as an architect making a rendering for something else. These drawings are drawings in and of themselves, finished artworks. So he was not really working out ideas for the fish in these drawings. They were a meditative practice for him. When Frank was thinking through architectural projects, he would think by making a model. And you can still see in Frank's studio in Culver City, you might see 25 models of a building before they began to build it. So the drawings are a way for him, I think, to be intimate with these forms. And Frank was also extremely involved in music. That was an important part of his life. And I think you can see music in the drawings. You can see music in the sculptures. The undulation, the rhythm, things have a certain rhythm to them. And I think this is important to note, that they are artworks in and of themselves. Also in this room is Frank's last copper fish on fire, is hanging from the ceiling here, lighted from within, done in 2021, and on loan to us from a great collector. We're very grateful for the loans. And we can walk now into the South Gallery and see his famous fish lamps, which he first did in 1983. And then he had a 30-year hiatus. So when he returned to this fantastic fish lamp form, he was full of energy and by now a world-famous architect. And you can see the joy he took in making these forms, because for an architect, of course, there's constant collaboration and constant problem solving and constant voices and compromise and making a client happy. But Frank got to just do what he wanted when he got into the studio. So I want you to come see these fish up close and underneath, because you feel like you're swimming with them. Each fish is handmade, with each scale hand cut. So there are no, sizes for the fish. They're just whatever size Frank makes. You can see there's a steel structure underneath, and then each scale is hand cut and applied one at a time. They look like paper, but these are polyvinyl. In the 1980s, there was a very new product called Formica, which people of a certain age will know very well, and others will not have heard the word. But for the Formica company reached out to architects and offered its very new product for architects to experiment with. And they had a contest to see who could make something the most interesting out of Formica. So Frank took the Formica in his hands and snapped it, and he saw an edge that he thought looked like a fish scale. Because long before 1983, Frank had said the fish is the perfect form. It's an ancient form, and it's really quite perfect. And when you think about his buildings, he is building in the blueprint of the fish into his buildings, which surge and slash and tip and turn, and they're very dynamic, like a fish. He made these fish lamps in the 1980s, and prior to that, he had made easy edges furniture, so Frank had been in the decorative arts arena as well as architecture. But by the time he returns to these fish lamp sculptures for us in 2013, he's now, one of the most famous architects in the world. And for him, it becomes a way to be quiet. The first gigantic fish forms that he did were architectural. They were big, fairly abstract fish forms, but you could walk into them. So he started big with the form, and then he scaled smaller for his domestic audience of art collectors, and then scaled back up again late in his life. These are 2021. The largest fish in the public arena is at 3 World Trade, and it's 22 feet, longer than either of these, and just incredibly beautiful, reflecting in the black granite walls, so it looks like there's 2 of them. And in that beautiful building, it's almost all glass, so you can see it glowing in there at night. And that was one of Frank's favorite commissions. We invited the studio that Frank Gehry partners to design the exhibition, which they did. So Megan Lloyd and Tay Park, in particular, thought about what they wanted to do with the beautiful checklist of artworks that we were able to put together. And they came up with the idea of these pedestals, which look very much like Frank. And they wanted us a new way to put the fish forward. And they included the Frank Gehry benches that you can see in both galleries. And it was their idea to make one room bright and sparkly, focusing on the bear, and this room, glowing and intimate and magical. So you have a yin and a yang, which is something that Frank often captured in his architecture. Frank has always captured light and thought about light in his practice. He's always thought about light in his buildings, and in the sculptures, they reflect and glow. So, for instance, the crocodile here is glowing, of course, from the inside, but also he is in reflective Formica. So he is also, the light is leaking out between these scales and flashing off of the many angles on the outside of this guy. Also, Frank was very intentional about the light hitting the walls. So it's great when your Frank Gehry lamp sculpture is right on the wall, because it will scatter these shards of light in a halo around the work. Frank was always looking for new ways to present the sculpture. So the fish could be directly on the floor, they could be on a single pedestal, they could be hanging from the ceiling, from pendulums on the ceiling, they could be grouped like this on the timbers. So the fish have a real affinity to one another, but there are lots of ways that he chooses to present them. And in this case, I think he was thinking of them sort of surfing. You know, I think it's the fish in the water, in the seaweed, in the motion of the water. And in these fish, he's also getting more Baroque. You can see the tails of these fish are curling and they're longer. So he's moving in a more Baroque direction. And I think he also had fun putting them on these big timbers with wheels so that, you know, you could move the artwork around. Not that people really would do that, but I think Frank is having fun with some of his favorite hardware. So a few things that make the show very special. First of all, of course, it was a moment to put our arms around the memory of Frank and feel his continued presence here in Los Angeles, and to celebrate him and to think about him at this time of transition. It was special for the Frank Gehry studio to design the exhibition. It was special to show the bear, which Frank had made over 10 years ago, but we had not had a chance to show the bear in the gallery until this moment. And in 2021, when we had our last show for Frank here in Beverly Hills, it was COVID. So we made this movie, we called it a premiere, to give the feeling for our audience and our clients, the feeling of being with Frank and the feeling of understanding his thinking about the music and his life in the community and his philanthropic life. Because Frank has been very involved with YOLA, Youth Orchestra Los Angeles, being conducted here by Gustavo Dudamel. And this is all happening here in the gallery. I don't know if you can tell that, but the youth orchestra was here in this room. It was a Frank Gehry experience, you know. It was all the things he loved most, art and music and architecture all together. The exhibition Frank Gehry is up through Saturday, June 27th. I hope you will come back to see it, and I hope you will come back many times. We've had many repeat visitors who come and commune with the artwork, and we hope to see you.